Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am Miranda Levers, COO of Thinkific, and I am so excited to have Maia Elious here today joining us. Maia is an online brand and strategy content strategist helping faith-based coaches and consultants build their brands in the online space. She's helped hundreds of students and clients launch digital content like blogs, masterclasses, webinars, and courses, all sorts of great stuff, and thrilled to have her here chatting about what she does today. Welcome, Maia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So yeah, before we even kind of dive in, I just love to know, how did you get to be where you're at now? Give us a little bit of the story. What's the history of where you've been and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, for sure. It's always really fun kind of thinking about where I started. I started doing web and graphic design in 2008, and I started out creating custom MySpace pages for people, mainly want to be models and music artists and just customizing their MySpace pages. I've always just really had a love for making people seem cooler than what they really were online, which is essentially what branding is, right? We put out the polished version of what our lives look like. It's not necessarily a lie, but it's just the best looking version. So that's pretty much how I got started. And then as I grew as a designer, I realized that a lot of my clients were investing a lot of money in looking good online, but they weren't really getting results. So they looked good, but what looked good wasn't really matching up with their reality. They weren't making money from their businesses. And it was because they didn't know how to drive traffic to their websites. They didn't know what they wanted their website to say. They didn't know what they wanted to sell to people. So I got really interested in making sure that my clients were actually getting results. When I was a designer, it wasn't my responsibility to make sure they got results. It was just my responsibility to design for them. But I did feel like I specifically wanted my clients to feel like it was an investment that they were going to get a return on. So I started learning more about how did I get people to trust me to give me money, and what were some of the processes and systems that I used in my own business to get one-on-one clients. And then I just started teaching those strategies to my own clients and really started focusing on messaging, which is something that I love so much and something that I'm so passionate about. And just helping people get really clear on what their value is so they can articulate that and get people to understand what they do, why it's important, and then eventually get those people that they wanted to work with to pay them. So that's kind of my transition. I started out with web and graphic design, which I love doing, but also adding in that messaging and strategy piece so it can all come together and become profitable.
Amazing. And now your client base obviously has shifted a little bit since those early days of models and musicians. So tell me about who you're speaking to most predominantly now.
Yeah, I feel like I'm predominantly speaking to women, maybe around late 30s, late 30s to 40s. And a lot of the people that I work with are faith-based. So a lot of these people, their business might not be faith-based, but I know almost 90% of my audience feels like spirituality is really important to their decision-making process with their business. So I work with a lot of life coaches or health and wellness coaches who talk about spirituality and how it affects your everyday mindset, how it affects your productivity. I also work with finance experts and career coaches. I've also worked with other business or branding coaches that just focused on a different niche. So I work with a lot of women, and it's really, really exciting because I honestly feel like almost all of my clients are smarter than me, and I get to learn so much from them. And I just take what I do know and I help them implement it to what they know and just create magic. I love it so much.
Amazing. And so I know that you came from a graphic design background, and then now you're teaching people about how they can incorporate the strategy side of brand. And so for somebody just getting started, are they mostly are you still doing a lot of that actual design work, or do you have tips or tricks for people who maybe aren't skilled in the ways of graphic design to approach design when they themselves are not a designer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I still do done for you with my agency, but we just have one package where it's we're going to take you from pretty much nothing and take you to like where expert status is, pretty much, and just helping you grow in an industry where people can see you as somebody that's trusted and an authority figure. But for somebody that wouldn't have thousands of dollars to invest in a team to pretty much do everything for them, my biggest piece of advice would be just keep things really simple, because that's where we go wrong. Even when I was starting out as a designer, or when I see new designers, create things for their clients or for their own business, is that we get way too excited with all of the options and the possibility. And we use too many fonts, we use too many colors, we use too many effects, we use all of the borders and the outlines and the shadows and the bevels and the glows, and we just do way too much. And what you want to do is just make your design really clean and simple, and just use one or two fonts, one or two colors, and use it consistently so that people are familiar with your visual branding when they see it.
Mm-hmm. So if somebody is branding their business sort of for the first time, or they're like really starting to figure out what that looks like, should they start with the graphics and the design and like what it looks like, or where do they start?
That's a great question. And this is another reason I started teaching too, because I feel like design should almost be like the last step. And a lot of people start with the design and it's like, okay, so it looks good, but it's not saying anything. And I really feel like the first step is deciding what is it that you want to be known for, and how can you create a message that really speaks to the right audience. So the first things that you need to focus on is, what do I want to say? Who do I want to say it to? And eventually down the road, how much do I want to charge for it? Because a lot of people are creating pretty blogs, but people are not creating profitable businesses. And it's because they're not thinking about what's most important first.
Mm-hmm. And so what's a typical client for you? Where are they at from a business stage perspective? Are you mostly speaking with brand new businesses, or are you speaking with people who maybe been doing this for a while and looking to shake things up?
It's kind of a mixture of both, because I primarily work with people who have been doing it for a long time, but they've been doing it for free for a long time. And so I work with people who probably have like 10 years of experience in doing something, like 10 years of experience in building their career, or 10 years of experience in like doing speaking gigs. But when it comes to putting that platform online and being able to teach it to other people for money, that's where they're new at. They're new at trying to learn, like, how do I use Instagram? What is a landing page? How do I build a sales funnel? They don't really understand the concept of that. So I think what I do is I'm teaching somebody something new, and I'm helping them kind of like skip the beginner phase of that. But I also get to work with somebody that is an expert in something very specific.
Mm-hmm. Now, I love digging into specific stories. And so I'd love to, I ultimately want to hear about a few different stories, but maybe let's pick somebody who was in that kind of like 10 years in the business, recognizing that they're not putting their best foot forward online. Walk us through a specific story of somebody that kind of was maybe in that stage of their business, the problems that they were having, and what the results of working with you and putting in place your practices were.
Yeah. So I can give you an example of somebody I'm working with now. Again, I just love my clients so much because they're so smart. So one client is a career coach, and it's just so amazing to hear her ideas, because I think a lot of people think that because they're new online, that they're a newbie in general. So I feel like she really doubted her abilities to be successful online. And we're still in the process of getting her fully online and helping her build her list. But I believe like as soon as we get all of that stuff published, it will be successful. But what I love so much is that so what I do when I'm working with my clients, I just have conversations with them and I ask them for advice based on their industry. So I'm like, what would I do if I wanted to, spruce up my resume if I haven't updated it in 5 years? And just being able to hear people get in their element and get in their zone of genius, I love it so much, because it builds that confidence for them. And I can just take some of the things that they say and create content for them, or tell them what type of content they need to be putting out. So it's just interesting to see somebody who's been building their career for 12 years just now deciding to start giving advice for other people on how to enter new careers or enter new industries and get a raise and get a promotion. And just so I just love that I have an opportunity to learn so much from my clients. I have another client who is a finance expert, and she honestly had no interest in leaving her job, but her her business grew so much that it was like she literally had to leave her job
It's
because
a great problem to have.
right, exactly, right. She's like, well, I love my job. She's like, I'm not one of those people that's in this to like, leave my 9 to 5. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. We'll do what we can part-time. But she was just she loved what she did so much. She always came to me with ideas. We always executed on them. We were always creating graphics and content for her audience. And then she eventually just grew a membership that was so big. She was doing so many speaking gigs. She was getting so much media attention that she eventually did have to quit her job. But what I really liked about her is that she was focused on what her mission was, and she wasn't focused on the outside parts of growing a business. Like, I want to leave my job and I want to be so successful and I want to make a bunch of money and I want a bunch of followers. She was not focused on that. And I think that's why she attracted that, because it wasn't the main focus.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you've talked about blogs, you've mentioned classes or master classes. I know there's lots of different types of content that somebody can create. And the same question, I think one of the things that I hear often from our customers is always just the overwhelm. Like, there's so many different platforms. There's so many places in social media. There's so many different ways that you can price your services, package your services, promote your services, like, and just not even knowing where to start. So in the realm of content, when somebody is not sure where to start, what do you suggest? How do they figure out what to do first?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing that I'm really starting to push on my clients or, some of my community members is just deciding, what is it that you want to be known for? Because I think we get so sidetracked. I think we get so distracted with all of the shiny things and all of the different things that we can do, is that we lose track of what is it that we want to be known for. And so what I really want to push people to start doing is just creating very key signature things. Like, have one key signature opt-in, have one key signature email sequence, and have one key signature product, and build that. Because if you can't build one thing successfully, you're not going to be able to build multiple things successfully. And I think people come right out the gate trying to have great blog posts, great videos, great podcasts, great Instagrams, great Pinterest accounts, great Facebook groups. And I'm like, you really just have to figure out, like, what is your signature thing that you're really good at mastering, and become the best at that. And I think that even goes into like narrowing down your niche, because that is something that I teach to people, like, figure out what your niche thing is. And it's not that because I don't believe you can be successful in multiple niches, but I think once you can master one niche, you build that trust factor so much quicker than if you come in the game trying to like be the best, vegan chef, and then also being the best, skincare expert, and then also being the best relationship expert. Once you can master one thing, you're going to build trust in that arena quicker. So that way, when you expand, you know how to use like strategies that you've used successfully, and then apply it to something different. So it's like, become successful at one thing before you try to add a bunch of different things. Become successful in one freebie, one social media platform, one email sequence, and one product before adding more.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I've frequently talk about that myself. And the example that I always give is, like, yes, like if you're a marketing expert, like absolutely you could be a marketing expert for everybody. But if you can create the landing page and the funnel for like marketing for, gigging musicians who just want to make more album sales at their next show, all of a sudden you're so specific and so perfect for exactly that particular person and the problems that they have. And the likelihood is that you're going to be able to grow quite a bit faster because you are exactly perfect for that particular audience. So on that idea, and I know that the other example that you had just given was like for a chef. And so, certainly somebody who is good at that could just as equally do the vegan meals potentially versus like meals for busy families or meals for, an entirely different, use case. But do you have an example of somebody who came in and really was quite broad or had the potential of being quite broad and narrowed in on something really specific, and then they saw that their business grew quite a bit faster than they had anticipated as a result?
That's a really good question. Let me see if I can think of an example. I'm trying to think of everybody that I've worked with.
Or maybe even yourself, because I know that before you were a little bit more broad in terms of
Yeah.
content and personal branding strategist, and now you're specifically speaking to faith-based coaches and consultants.
Yeah. I think me narrowing down, especially as a designer, definitely helped because I was doing web and graphic design for everybody. And I think also the more niche you get, the more you can charge because you then become a specialist, right? You're not just like a generalist. An example I always give is like, let's say you have like a rash and you don't know where it came from and it's something that's really irritating your skin. You're probably not going to go to just your regular doctor. You're going to go to a dermatologist because they
Mm-hmm.
specialize in this very specific problem. So when I started out and I was doing $50 MySpace pages, $10 flyers, $35 business cards, I was just doing everything. But when I really decided that I wanted to design for personal brands and I packaged things instead of just doing a la carte, and I had one very clear specific goal, like design to build your personal brand online, it became much more clear on how I could help people. And I was able to pinpoint problems easier as somebody who wanted to be in a consultant or a coaching role. If you can't pinpoint a problem, then you're not going to be a successful coach or consultant. So I definitely think that narrowing down what my offering was and being able to pinpoint a problem has definitely helped my business grow. Even with my agency, because even when I narrowed down a little bit more as a designer, I was making decent money. But when I really focused on what I wanted to do with my agency and offered one package for $7,000, like that's when it became like, okay, I can really make good money with what I'm doing, and I can work with people that I actually enjoy working with. So not only are you making the money that you want to make, but you're also targeting the type of people that you enjoy working with as well. Because I love all of my clients. They're so fun.
Awesome. So on the agency side, I mean, the work that you do is absolutely stunning and beautiful. I think I could
Thank
skim
you.
through and look at like your Instagram and your designs all day long. It's absolutely beautiful. Who is like, so beyond maybe just, or maybe it is, like, who is the ideal perfect client for you? So if somebody is listening to this and they're thinking like, yes, my brand needs a leg up, like I'm not doing all of these things, who absolutely needs to go check out your agency because they are exactly the customer that is perfect for you? What is that? What does she look like?
Oh, so the perfect person for me is somebody who is 100% sure that they're in this for the long run and not anybody that is just like acting like they're an expert, but they really believe like I've been doing this for so long and I'm really dedicated to wanting to help other women. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also willing to put in the work. Because I think what happens is when people consider hiring somebody for a done for you service, they feel like, well, now I don't have to put in any of the work. But the truth is now you're just putting in smarter work when you're working with me, my team. So somebody that's willing to brainstorm with me and say, hey, this is the story I want to tell in this email, or this is how I want to twist around this blog post. So somebody that is really passionate about using their voice, getting their message out there, telling their story. Somebody who's definitely in it for the long run, and definitely somebody who is disciplined. I think I love working with finance experts just because people that are disciplined with their money, just that discipline overflows everywhere else. And anytime that I've had a client as a finance expert, like they execute, and I love it so much because I could be like, hey, go write these 3 emails and come back to me. We'll put it in your sequence. We'll link it back to your landing page and to your freebie. And they just get it done. And that allows them to get results quicker. So anybody that's going to put in the work and use their voice and be excited about helping other women, that's the perfect person.
Fantastic. And if somebody wants to check out your agency services, where do they find you?
They can go to builttoimpact.com.
Amazing. Amazing. And then I know that you also have an online membership program for maybe people that are a little bit more DIY. What does that look like? And tell us about that.
Yeah, I love my membership program. I love the people inside of there. I feel like the membership program is like the DIY version and way, way, way more affordable version than the agency. It's really built for people who have more time than they do money. And basically it's the same process that I go through with my clients, but I'm basically just creating like a template and a foundation so people can create content and build a sustainable online business in the way that I would for my clients. So what I love about it is that I pretty much, the way that I teach, it's very like step by step, and I try not to miss any steps, but then I also try not to overshare. So my audience doesn't get overwhelmed. So I'm sharing like exact checklist of what I do when I put up a blog post, and exact templates of how I write out my landing pages, and exact checklist of what I do when I put up a webinar page. And then we also have in there like tech tutorials, like how I use ConvertKit to send out emails, or how I use Google Hangouts to do a webinar, and what other things I'm integrating. So I love the membership because it's just flat out giving you all of the answers that you need. And then I also love that people have access to me inside of our private Slack community, because anytime they have a question, I'm always there to answer it for them, or anybody on my team, you know, is there to answer it for them too. And just being able to get direct feedback from an expert, or direct feedback even just from the other people inside of the membership. And then I also allow like other experts to come in and do like a chat with them, which is really fun, because I like people to get a perspective that's not just always mine, because the membership isn't about what does Maia think, it's about how can I get the best results, and what is the industry standard based on multiple experts.
Cool. So you mentioned Slack as community. Obviously, there's lots of different options for online community. Why did you choose Slack?
We chose Slack because we didn't want to do another Facebook group where people could be easily distracted. We know how distracting Facebook is, and we're really, really, really huge on implementation. So if you're going to be inside of community, we want it to be a community where it's like Maia gives you advice and you go do exactly what she tells you to do, instead of like Maia gives you advice, but you check to see who commented on your last photo really quickly before you go get work done. And then 2 hours later, you're down this rabbit hole looking at kitten videos on Facebook.
Right. Yeah. And then I know one of the things, at least for me personally, like, because I've kind of thought about like we at Thinkific, we've got a really active Facebook group, but we've also thought about like, do we do a Slack community, or do we have something that's a different tier? And one of my fears around something like that is almost like the inverse, which is everybody's already on Facebook. So I feel then it's like you're already kind of where they are. Whereas Slack, not everybody's using it every day. And so do you find the opposite problem, which is sometimes it can be hard to pull people back in, or have you kind of unlocked that code?
I'm still unlocking the code, honestly. And that's kind of like the fun thing about, you know, growing your business and trying new things. Cause you're like, okay, well, I don't know everything. I'm trying to figure it out as well. I think it's definitely, and even though Slack is really easy, it's still a learning curve for people. They're like, okay, I'm not really sure what this Slack thing is. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think once they figure it out, they're good. So I think either option works. I think Facebook would have been just as good as an option too, even with the distraction. I think the truth is your audience is just going to go wherever you tell them to go because they trust you. And I think that's something that's really important for the listeners to understand, is that people will do what you tell them to do. That's why they pay you in the first place, right? People trust you. People look at you as an authority figure. And if you tell them to go to Facebook, they're going to go to Facebook. If you tell them to go to Slack, they'll go to Slack. So don't overthink what platforms you need to be on, if you should do a video, or if you should do podcasting, or if you should do blogging. Your audience, if they are genuinely interested in your voice and your advice, they will go to wherever your voice is.
One of the things I love that you mentioned, giving people very specific things that they can go and implement right now, as opposed to just a lot of, I find that there's so much information out there, but often it's not really actionable. I'll read like a 5,000 word article where I'm kind of going the entire time, I'm like, yes, this all makes sense. And then you kind of get to the end and you're like, but I have no idea now what to do about it, or how to actually
right.
my business. Like, now what? And so just to put you on the spot a little bit, you mentioned landing pages, for example. Now, certainly people can, spend a lot of time and kind of go dive deep back into who they are, what they're building, who they're building it for, and rebuild branding and messaging and so on and that and so forth. But if somebody right now is listening and they're thinking, oh, like, I know that it's not perfect. If they've got an hour and they've got time to go and update their landing page, what are the tips? Like, what do they need to look at? What are the quick, easy wins that they can maybe implement today?
Yeah. One of the things that I would do if I had a landing page and an hour to make sure that it was something that would convert is I always just test it on other people. Like, and I don't mind constructive criticism. So the first thing is you have to let go of your ego and welcome constructive criticism and ask a couple people to look at it for you and give honest feedback if the words on the page are actually speaking to them. So you want to read through your landing page, and you also want to make sure that it flows and that it makes sense. Because sometimes you guys are just putting things like putting words on a page and it doesn't actually make sense, or it's not speaking to a pain point. And you want to make sure that it's something that somebody can actually use, right? So your freebie doesn't have to be anything like a 5-day email course. Those don't even really convert well anyway. It needs to be something where somebody can get quick results. So make sure it's something that's going to get somebody results. Make sure that the copy on the landing page is speaking to those results, and make sure that the page is just flowing well and it makes sense. So it doesn't need to be too text heavy, but it needs to be very clear on the results that people can expect from the freebie. And then also, you won't be able to do this maybe in an hour, but over time, as people are downloading your freebie, follow up with the people downloading a freebie and ask them what they thought or what they've been able to do with the information that you get them, and get testimonials from them, and then start putting testimonials on your landing page as well. Because I think a lot of people are like, how do I get testimonials if I've never sold anything? Well, your free content should be so good that it's getting people results and that you can get testimonials.
Fantastic. So I'm curious as well. So, I mean, we've talked about blogs. We kind of like just mentioned that like you can do courses, you can also do membership sites. I find that a membership site and the commitment to doing not just sort of one-way content or one-on-one content, but ultimately creating a community and a group can be a really big commitment. How do you know when you're ready for that? Or how did you know when you were ready for that?
Yeah, I think it's just interesting. I think once you know how to build engagement, like you're seeing a lot of comments on your social media, and this requires you to actually talk back to your audience. I think a lot of people are like, I don't get any engagement. I'm like, well, you're not talking to them at all. I think once you learn how to have conversations with people outside of a community, that's when you'll know how to actually lead a community. So you have to be really intentional about like, am I asking questions in my captions? Am I opening things up for discussion? Am I, putting out clear calls to action for people to give some feedback or to take a next step and do something actionable? You definitely want a community of people that are taking action. They're also just going to be like this dead community of people doing nothing. So if you can build engagement and there's people asking you communities on social media or in your inbox consistently, then that's when you know you can build a community, like a specific platform-based community, like a Facebook group.
Fantastic. And obviously we both spend our days speaking with business owners and know many of the trials and tribulations of business ownership. And so my question back to you, I guess, is like, how do you do it? I mean, I know that you're juggling, you've got your agency, you've got your community, you've got courses. I know that you're doing speaking gigs and various things that way. I saw you on Ant Duty the other day on your Instagram post with your beautiful niece.
Oh, thank you.
So I know family, of course, is also quite important. And so what are some of your tips around just balancing and work-life balance? I know I just feel like I work 24 hours a day, but trying to make time for everything. So what are some of your tips for other busy business owners?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a plus that I don't have a husband or kids. So there's that. But the other thing too is I think it also comes back to focus, but then even having your own personal community, like having your own circle of people that you can bounce ideas off of. They can say like, this is a good idea. This is not a good idea. Like, don't waste your time on that. And that's honestly really helpful. And I'm also now in the place where I'm fortunate enough to like be able to afford a team. And so like my team is kind of my circle of friends too, because my copywriter is really intentional. She's like, oh, let's do this. Like, I'll write this up for you. Or my assistant will be like, oh, this is a great idea. I'll go research that for you. So just having like people on your team that want to see you win. And I know that's hard as a creative, like the people closest to us, like they don't really get what we do, but it would really be, beneficial to find people, find them in communities, wherever you need to find people that are doing something similar. They're on a similar level as you, so that way they understand the same trials and things that you go through and are just really excited to see you win, and they're going to just push you.
Awesome. This has been fantastic, Maia. Where can people find you online?
You can find me everywhere at MaiaElious.com. And if you want to join my Facebook group and hang out with me, you can join at MaiaElious.com/community.
Awesome. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been really fun chatting. I'm excited to share some of what you're doing with our like broader audience, and anybody who just loves beautiful design and beautiful copy and like the whole thing. If you're a brand junkie like I am, go check out our stuff because it's absolutely stunning. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Miranda. Take care.